And think about that now. He just came in January, and here he is in July finishing up. What was it what was Steamboat missing here?
You always go back to the two culprits, Conrad, the two C's, cash and creative. I'm not sure about the cash component. Ricky was being paid well, as I recall. I wasn't involved in the payoffs and stuff like that at that point in time because the guys are essentially on salary. So that was something they would negotiate with their representatives or themselves and whoever was running the company at that time. In this case, I think Jim Hurd. So it's always cash and creative. You can decipher, suck it right down to that. That's the bottom line. And I know Ricky was not pleased with this creative. How do you follow up on three of the greatest matches ever with arguably the greatest pro wrestler ever? How do you follow that up?
Right.
It's an insurmountable odds to recreate magic with somebody else. And I have great respect for Lex Luger and the man he's become and how, the things he's overcome is health wise. He's a great success story in my view. And I think the world of him. And I think of him often because of the journey that he's on and the ups and downs and twists and turns. But, there's no way, it's not fair. And Alexis say the same thing. It's a step down for Steamboat. Skill-wise, the matches are not going to be nearly as good. And the irony of it is, if we could just got through it, it would have made Steamboat would have made Luger a much better pro wrestler.
Yes.
The more match time, the more in-ring stuff. But Ricky did not like the direction it was in. But look, there's nothing. What else are you going to do? Who are you going to book him with? That's going to compare to Flair. Well, there's nobody that can do that.
Right.
So, and I'm not kissing Flair's ass the sake of kissing his ass, but he's a top of the mountain. There's nobody it's made it tough booking wise. But I think also Ricky, strong family man. I think he kind of probably, I'm sure like a lot of guys and gals, has some guilt when they're away too much from their children. That is their first responsibility, being a parent, not being a baby face. So I think he got a little burned out and he was ready to get off the road, I think, as much as anything. And that's what he did.
It's just amazing to me to think about his career in terms of when he's fresh off of the greatest WrestleMania match in history. 2 months later, he needs time off. It's never the same. He's gone several months later.
Yeah.
Now he's fresh off the greatest trilogy anybody's ever seen and a former world champion. Now he finally made it to the top of the mountain. A couple of months later, he's gone. If nothing else, our man was principled. He did it his way.
Yeah.
And, I can't help but wonder if that maybe potentially hurt his standing in the conversation when people talk about all-time greats, because it feels like they always say, well, it's Shawn Michaels or Ric Flair. But man, if Steamboat had worked continuously and not been so principled and taken some of these breaks and walked away when he felt like he wasn't getting a fair shake, instead of powering through like Flair more often than not did, he'd be mentioned up there with those guys, would he not?
Oh, of course. Yeah. A skill, bell to bell. Yes, Conrad, without a doubt. Bell to bell, comparing Steamboat, comparing many others above Steamboat would be absolutely erroneous. Not even close. Charisma was always an issue with Ricky and some people's conversation. Like I said earlier, I thoroughly enjoyed working with him because I knew I'd get honesty and I knew he'd be at work and I knew that he'd give his best effort. And his skill set was just there. At one time, I mean, in WCW, I mean, there was the two best workers in the world. I thought were Flair and Steamboat, and we had them
right.
And we had them for 3 pay-per-views. Like I said, the Superdome pay-per-view was misguided and it's not good. How it was promoted was a joke and so forth. And to go sit in that building with 4,000 or 5,000 people in a 70,000 seats dome stadium was a little bit embarrassing.
No doubt.
And the show was ill-timed, and I think they didn't go off the air too prematurely or something. It was not a good day at the office. But what was good was the story being told in 2 out of 3 falls that Flair and Steamboat told, especially if you look back at the first fall and how Steamboat won the first fall with a submission.
It's an incredible trilogy. Go out of your way to watch it.